The only negatives I can really think of, which is a worldwide event, Sam, which is basically like hooliganism. Hooliganism. Do you believe that gap? Like, and be honest here. Do you believe that gap will always be there?
Personally, this is going to make me sound quite bad, but I actually believe women's football is a very good thing. However, I think there will always be the gap, purely because you've got to think about how long men's football has been around.
You know, because effectively, any movement you make, you can be like, oh, well, you know, you've done that wrong.
Well, I mean, it's interesting you say that. So I completely agree that people can be very critical, whether you're, someone who just watches it on the sofa or an ex-professional. I do think sport gives you a release. There's so again, when I go to Arsenal, if something goes awful and I just don't agree with it, I go mental.
Yeah.
Like it can be quite aggressive, but it's just like, I'm paying money for you to do something. You're not doing it. Sort it out. On my phone.
Okay, yeah, I'm recording on both now. So I'm going to start a countdown from 5.
Actually, one sec, mate. Sorry, I just need to go on. No. I'm going on Do Not Disturb. Okay, go.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I think I was early there.
And welcome to another episode of the Chat All About It podcast. Samuel.
Jack, how are we doing?
All good, mate. It's been, actually, I've got to mention it because it just has been. It has been one of these days, hasn't it? It's been very stressful actually setting up a virtual pod today. But what you have to realise, we got there. We are here, and we finally got there. But it's so funny how, go on, Carrot.
I was going to say, we're doing everything we can to keep this going, whether it's issues on my end or yours. You know, working together as a team and pulling through, mate.
It's mental because we had a conversation before, doing this like virtual sort of on the virtual side of it. That basically, it will be fine because you just go on your computer and you plug in your webcam and it will be working absolutely fine. But I tell you what, people, make sure you do your software updates because that can really cause you a lot of struggle.
And make sure your webcam actually works because
it's a massive bonus, to be fair. Because if you've got a working webcam, you're halfway there.
Yeah, I mean, it's not been ideal, but
no, we
move on.
We do
podcast,
and today's podcast is interestingly about sports. Me and Samuel wanted to talk about the good and bad things which come with live sport and also participating in that said sport. We're going to be covering all sorts of sports, so it's not just going to be football, which I'm guessing a lot of you think we're just top football banter lads and we're going to talk about football. No, we're going to talk about all of the bad and good that come from all types of sports, men and women. And Sam, I'm going to let you shoot off the first bullet of conversation in this subject. So
thank you.
I'm going to start you off with a question, sir. Okay.
Go for it.
What do you think are the bad outcomes from sports?
The bad outcomes from sport. I feel that. Do you mean in terms of competitively, or do you mean just in general? Okay. So this isn't something that I personally have experience, but I think something that is quite bad is if you're, say, in school and it's PE, right? You're doing PE, whatever sport it is, whether it's football, rugby, tennis, whatever you're doing in school, and you're not particularly good at that sport, or it's not something that you would indulge yourself into, right? It's not a skill you necessarily want to master. If you're not good at that, you're going to get the mick taken out of you. Like, in that sort of environment anyway, it's like, you're not very good, and then, like, if something happens in, like, year 7, it's remembered all the way up until year 11. You're the guy who's awful at that sport, and it's just like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, I guess you're looking at sort of like an academic sort of child level, but I was sort of looking at, like, the actual professional side of sport. The negative sides I can only really think of, because I don't think there's many, if I'm honest with you. I think there's a hell of a lot more positives which come with sport than negatives. So the only negatives I can really think of, which is a worldwide event, Sam, which is basically like hooliganism. Hooliganism.
Hooliganism?
Hooliganism. And basically...
Sorry, one more time.
Hooliganism. Hooliganism.
Yes!
I'm not going to...
got it.
Not one more. But anyway, basically, I feel like that does incite... It has in the past worldwide incited worldwide riots, if that makes sense. So,
World Cup.
Well, yes. For example, the World Cup or American football. I know for a fact there's fights that happen, and obviously it's all to do with I'm not talking about the actual athletes. I'm talking about the actual fans that come to watch. And the only other negatives I could say, really, from my knowledge, is that I feel like certain footballers are grossly overpaid. And
I'm so happy you said that.
Does it have a positive effect to this world? I feel like some players, they do give a hell of a lot of money to tax. They give a hell of a lot of money to charities. So in some instances, them being paid high amounts is good. But then a lot of the time, I feel like maybe it is a bad thing that they get paid that much, because I feel like maybe they take away the whole reason why they play football. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's certain football teams out there that are just total mercenaries. Like, for example, Man City. Anyone that's went to Man City has not went there for the history of the club. They've went there because they're mercenaries. They're being paid vast amount of money. So then that sort of takes it away. So, I mean, I know you could say that for any football club at the end of the day, but...
No, but I think as well, I mean, there's obviously... The reason why you brought that up is because it's a common topic that we speak about. There's one particular player who is basically robbing a living, but there's also, like... it must have been like last year.
Mesut Ozil.
Yes, robbing a living. It's just pathetic. But there's also, I think, there's an American footballer who's on $500,000 a week, like something ridiculous like that. Like $500,000 a week. Some people don't earn that in their lifetime.
Yeah, well,
that's mental.
Did you know, Sam, the sport which carries the most money? Did you know that?
I'd probably say football or Formula One.
I believe it's golf.
Golf?
I believe it's golf. The last time I checked, I believe that golf holds the most money. So, you better buy one of them sticks, Sam.
Get the stick and the bag out, and then you'll get a dodgy jumper. Yeah, you'll be all right.
Oh, yeah, love that dodgy jumper. So, yeah, I mean, well, look, we're going to touch on the negatives because really there are a hell of a lot of positives, aren't there, Sam? Like, you must have even a personal moment where, you know, you not let alone admiring watching sport, actually participate. You've surely had a memory where you've participated in a sport, whether it be a solo thing or a team thing, and you've thoroughly enjoyed the experience.
I think we kind of people who watch the pod know that we are big football fans in general. So obviously myself, I've experienced successes within my personal footballing career. Can you say that?
Well, you've just said you've had a lot of sort of experiences playing football.
Yeah, and I've also
not at a high level though.
Not at a high level, but there's been experiences like one. We're not going to go into too much detail about it, but one example would be like when I was 11, I think my team got to the cup final. We got to play in an actual stadium, and actually had a crowd, which was quite nice, bit different. We lost, but
it's funny though how you first mentioned the negative thing about children not being picked as a team, but for certain children it literally builds them. Like as in they're good at playing whatever sport. They get a lot of admiration from their mates and people in the school, and it sort of actually sets them a career in life. It lets them know, I want to do this in life, and whether that's going into the Olympics or I don't know, playing hockey. What's also quite interesting, what I did want to get into with you, Sam, is women's football and also basically the gap. Do you believe that gap, be honest here, do you believe that gap will always be there?
Personally, this is going to make me sound quite bad, but I actually believe women's football is a very good thing. However, I think there will always be the gap, purely because you've got to think about how long men's football has been around and how long the game has, how much the game has developed within the time that football has existed, how much it's developed within the time that we've been fans of it. Women's football is very far behind that. And I just think it's because the investment doesn't go into it. And to be fair, there probably isn't a fraction of the fan base of men's football, but that's, that does come over time. Like the Women's World Cup that I think must have been 2 years ago, maybe last year even, that was on in France, was like the biggest female sporting event ever, and you've got people from all over the world who have said they enjoyed it more than the Men's World Cup. I don't know.
Well, I feel like that women's football has actually grown quite considerably.
Yeah.
Where I feel like you would have actually, Sam, you would have never even known there was a Women's World Cup on. But I felt like the last one, it was actually sort of mainstream sport media news. And, I personally don't think they'll ever bridge the gap. I always think it will be completely different. Even if they invest, like they do with the men's football, like they invest in academy, so like young girls at the age of 8, like training them all the way up to adult life, being like a professional, whatever it is, footballer, hockey player. Like, I feel like that it always will look different. It would always look different if they had the equal amount of training as a young child. But it is interesting to actually see that sport grow, that sort of women's sort of side grow. I feel like that there's obviously a lot more space in other sports for them to also become a bit of the mainstream. I mean, when you look at most of the Olympics these days, that's essentially what it is now, isn't it? It's like 50-50 down the line of men and women. So it'd be interesting to see that in other sports. I don't think it will be football, but maybe it's something like
I think
NBA, maybe. What do you think?
I think I was actually going to say basketball. I think like they've got. I think there was a women's league before there was a women's league in football. Like it's a really like the WNBA is massive. It's huge.
Yeah.
So like I think as well, like it's what we were going to go before. What you were saying before about bridging the gap. I think we're now in an era. Like previously, there's only been an era of male icons or figures to look up to. So like, let's just say football, for example, because we know I'd say we know more about that. There's more, like, off the top of my head, Pele, Maradona, Dennis Bergkamp, of course, Thierry Henry, David Beckham. But now I think we're getting in an era where women's football is becoming more popular. Like 5 years ago, I probably couldn't name you a women's footballer.
Yeah, that's true.
I know, I don't know too many, I'll be honest, but you've got Alex Morgan, who's now unfortunate at Tottenham, who's like the best women's footballer in the world. And interestingly, comes from America, which hasn't got a massive, or only recently, again, has only just developed their football or soccer, whatever you want to call it, has only really got bigger now. And she's been around for about 15 years. So I find that quite interesting.
What I quite like as well about sport is that you can literally see the amount of community that it actually gels. Like when you look at, for example, not the World Cup, the Olympics in London in 2012, I really felt there was a huge sense of patriotism with all of that going on. I felt like being British was a sort of very sort of proud moment during the Olympics. And also, like, even like small towns, like you could look at, for example, it's not a small town, but Leeds, right? Leeds are all about their football club. They are all a huge community that are really close. It's a close-knit community. And something like a sport, like football, like their football club Leeds, it really makes them sort of... that's how I see it as a positive thing, that they sort of enjoy each other as a community. So it is really nice to actually see sport do that, and it makes people and their lifestyle go in a positive direction.
I think as well. You mentioned about the Olympics and people being very patriotic. I'm not really into rugby or golf or anything like that, or cricket. But when it's the Ashes, or when it's the Rugby World Cup, or when it's the Ryder Cup. I do watch it and I get really heavily invested and learn a little bit about the players and because obviously although the Ryder Cup is European based, I'm still supporting that against the US and do you know what I mean? Like I maybe it's because there isn't football, but I just feel like sport for me is it's kind of an escapism, but I also see what you mean, like a community, like something that I think is really important. It has been for me, and I'm sure it has been for yourself as well. Is the sport of choice within my family, as you're aware, is football. That's made memories for me, and mainly my dad, and a connection between me and him that perhaps it may have been forced upon me, but I've taken it upon myself to kind of continue that. If that's, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it is one of them things. Even behind closed doors, though, like if you went to the field to play football with your mates, you've got a really good activity to do with your mates, and I feel like it is actually really healthy sort of hobby to do as well. So,
well, think about what we did just before my birthday. Do you remember we literally did what you said? We went to a field and went for a kickabout.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Just as an excuse to sort of get out, do some exercise, have a laugh. Like it wasn't like anything like demanding, but
we weren't
just going
very
out.
good.
No, of course not. No, but just going out for like a kickabout with your mates is nothing too demanding as well, and it's quite social.
Yeah.
And I feel like the social side of sport is really not looked at a lot, to be honest. Like a lot of people do, for example, golf, to meet up with all their mates, spend a day playing golf, and also have a laugh with each other. So it is one of them things, isn't it? What would you say though, like, has been your most favourable moment watching sport?
My favourite moment watching sport, genuinely, actually only happened a couple of years ago, was when I went to Ali Pali, and I think you've been as well, to watch the darts. So like, again, like it isn't football, but darts. I've tried to explain to people. Like I actually really enjoy watching darts, but when you're there, and the atmosphere, you've got people dressed up as Mr. Blobby or in a banana costume or something ridiculous like that, and then the atmosphere makes it, and like you said, that sense of community where everyone's there to enjoy the same thing. The hooliganism, if I've said that right, doesn't need to happen, but like the sense of community, you're all there to have a good time. You're all there for the same thing, so just enjoy it. And at the darts, there's literally the culture is basically, I don't care what's happening. I'm just gonna have a laugh with my mates, have a laugh with the people that are there, have a couple of drinks, maybe more than a couple, and enjoy myself. And unfortunately, it isn't going to happen this year, but every year I look forward to going to Ali Pali because I don't really care about the result at the end of the day. And I know in terms of sport, the result's quite important, but I couldn't care less because I'm just there to have a laugh. I don't know if that's the answer you were looking for, but what is your favourite moment?
So I guess unfortunately it's one-sided for me because I haven't really watched a lot of live sport. I have went to the darts. I would love to watch rugby. I've heard rugby is an amazing sort of experience. I've watched cricket, which was quite different for me because I've since the age of 3, Sam, the tender age of being 3 years old, I have been taken to football games. So unfortunately, I'm very sort of one-sided, and it's difficult. I mean, there are so many moments, aren't there? Like it's like saying choose your favourite film. I feel like one of the standout moments for me personally was the FA Cup final against Hull City.
Oh, here we go. Which I didn't go to.
Which you didn't go to, that I offered you tickets to. Because you said you'd rather work at Superdry.
Let's Super. I'm wearing Superdry in honour of that moment.
In honour of that moment, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, there's so many reasons why that moment was special, but I would say that something when you watch a sport or a team for so long, it sort of becomes you. I know that's a weird thing to say, but it's sort of like, it's part of you, if that makes sense. So if your team wins, you're just buzzing because that's your team, that's you. Yeah. So you're happy about that situation. So obviously we hadn't won a cup in about 10 years, and we came so close several times, and we actually were losing the game Yeah, it was just tragic, and what I remember though is another part of sport which I find quite interesting is that the amount of money these final tickets were costing people, because it was very limited to only a certain amount of people that could get the tickets, and certain people were selling theirs. So instead of buying, so the ticket was £120 as it is, right, and it's just a bog standard seat. Fair enough, it's an FA Cup final, right? £120 for a seat. People were selling these seats for like £500 a ticket.
Ridiculous.
And I remember that basically being like there wasn't a lot of people selling this ticket because it's Arsenal versus Hull City, so everyone's thinking it's Hull City, like it's a guaranteed
Arsenal. That's
win.
a dub all day long.
Yeah, and I remember we went 2-0 down at half time. It was 2-1 actually, because Santi Cazorla scored the best free kick ever, apparently, according to Arsenal.
Which I disagree with, but anyway.
And there were two guys in front of me that left at half time, and I was just in so much shock because number one is that is an awful thing to do as a fan. Like,
outrageous.
You've got
not supporting your team.
I mean, it's ridiculous. Like, I understand that some people may have to leave maybe 10 minutes early because they have certain commitments. I understand that. I mean, it's their loss at the end of the day. But to just walk away in anger, Oasis, and I don't look back in anger.
I like that. It's a good little reference.
Yeah. To just walk away and basically ruin that chance for someone else to enjoy that seat. Because what actually happened was amazing. In that second half, it was absolutely a roller coaster of emotions. And as I say, it was the best sort of moment when Aaron Ramsey scored this absolute tragic goal. That wasn't.
I thought you were going to say this beautiful goal. It was awful.
No, it was. It was just panic. It was just. But I remember being in the fifth row, Sam. And after this goal went in, maybe within I think it was about 10 seconds, I was pushed to the first row. It was just mental. It was almost like a grenade went off behind me, and I just got forced to the front row, and it was such like an amazing. I'll never forget the sort of instant pump of adrenaline. I was just buzzing, so buzzing, and happy that it happened, and that you actually were there to experience it, because it is a different experience, isn't it, from watching it on the telly to being there.
Well, I think the only Arsenal game I have in comparison to that is when we is years ago, and we beat Barcelona at the Emirates, and we were 1-0 down. Barcelona, I don't know what's going on with them now, but they were unbelievable, best team in the world, and we had just some awful players on the pitch, and we won 2-1. And I've never heard anything like it. Like, the place erupted, and it was horrific. It was horrifically loud, considering the Emirates is always so quiet. But I also think it goes back to the sense of the community thing. Like, these people that you're with, I think you went with one of our mates. Other than him, you don't know anyone, and you're celebrating like a lunatic in the first row.
Yeah, and you're like hugging everyone, and
do you know what I mean?
Honestly, this is pre-COVID. Just
just but it's we're allowed to talk about the past. Like, we don't need to reference.
I think everyone watches the telly these days and go, they shouldn't be standing that close to each other.
They shouldn't be standing that close to each other 5 years ago, but it's okay. It doesn't matter. I think that, like I said, it gives you that sense of community, and I feel that sport is an opportunity, like I said, for families to bond, or even to make friends out of it. Like, I think where I sit at the Emirates, for example, I've been sitting with the same people for the past 3-4 years. Obviously not now, but for the past 3-4 years. And there's a sort of thing where when I first went there, met them, sat next to them, it was like, hi, a bit casual. And then but then we'd, not intentionally, but we'd maybe 45 minutes before the game, all just get together and start having a chat. Maybe not even about football, just, because it's a familiar face of someone that you know, and it's an opportunity just to bond, really. And I think that sport does do that, whether it's the Olympics, football, whatever sport it may be. It's just that bond that you can have with people.
I've just realised actually I did watch for quite a long time live cage fighting, and that is also another sort of sport which, like combat sport. If you've never watched sort of live combat sport, it's really sort of amazing. It is amazing.
You took me to some sort of event years ago, and I just didn't get it. Years ago.
All right, I'm not too sure. Like, I have actually been to so many sort of like live cage fighting events.
I went to one. I didn't get it.
Some of them are extremely cringy to watch, and some of them are like. There's also an element like, because I don't play football, but I can imagine if I was like maybe, so for example, I was an ex-professional footballer, you would watch football in a different way. So because I used to train a lot of kickboxing and boxing, I used to do a lot of training and I used to do a lot of sparring. When I used to watch it live, I always watched it in a different way. Like, it's funny like how you sort of like, you're so critical, really. And any sport, I feel like it's so easy to be so critical, because effectively any movement you make, you can be like, oh, well, you've done that wrong.
Well, I mean, it's interesting you say that. So I completely agree that people can be very critical, whether you're, someone who just watches it on the sofa or an ex-professional. I do think sport gives you a release. So again, when I go to Arsenal, if something goes awful and I just don't agree with it, I go mental.
Yeah.
Like it can be quite aggressive, but it's just like, I'm paying money for you to do something. You're not doing it. Sort it out. like I'm a lot less polite than that.
Yeah.
But we try to be polite on the podcast. But yeah, it's just like it's. I say, for example, I mean, it's not related to sport. When I was younger, my parents gave me the drums, bought me the drums to get my aggression out. I was a bit of an aggressive child. Football was that for me. Like, if there's someone that I just dislike playing, whether it's for the team I support or even if it's just watching TV, I'll scream at the TV. I'll just go into it like, what are you doing? Like, I can't deal with it. But yeah, that's what it does for me. I'm not an angry person, just an example.
Yeah. No, well, it ignites passion. That's what it is. It's not. I wouldn't say it's anger. I would say that you're just invested, aren't you? You're invested financially and you're invested emotionally.
Yeah.
And, it's them two things clashing as a person who watches it. But also, I mean, I did one kickboxing fight. So that's like me in a sport.
Which you won. I just wanted to get it in there again.
Undefeated. Coming into the ring.
Where's the belt?
I've left it. Left in the wardrobe.
Not a conversation. Just the belt in general. Yeah. But go
on. So actually being involved in a fight is quite interesting, because obviously when you watch yourself back, you're looking at it completely different, because you're going, well, you know what? I'll be honest with you. The actual build up to that fight, all my trainers said to me, you are going to be shitting yourself. Like when you know that you're like got 10 minutes left, you're going to feel like shit. You're not going to want to fight. And to be honest with you, you've got a very good chance that you're going to be sick. And I honestly thought, like, to myself, like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Like, are you sure? Do you really think I'm going to be doing that? Like, no way.
At the time, you're probably pumped. You're probably full of adrenaline. So that's probably the last thing you're thinking of.
Yeah, so exactly. That's what I'm thinking. But oh my god, I had not. I remember this place where I was fighting, and I just thought straight away. I just thought, right, where are the toilets? Right, they're there. Right, so just remember where they are. So, not one word of a lie. Someone told me, right, you've got 15 minutes left. After this fight, you're going to be on. The second he said that, my stomach literally turned. I went outside to get some fresh air, and I thought, right, I'm going to be sick. I can't do it here. I cannot do it here. When you're going to be sick. So I ran.
You had to plan it out. You had to be
I ran into the building to see where the toilets were. A queue with about 8 people there, and I'm thinking, right, I'm not being sick near them. So
nice.
I went back into the car park, and just like honestly, I had no idea how I didn't. Like, kept doing some like really deep breathing, and then I went in, and I sort of just said to myself, like, pull yourself together, like fucking, you know, like I just thought, surround yourself with people that are going to make you focus. So I went to my coach. We started doing pad work, and went into the ring. I was just buzzing. At that point, I was buzzing. I was raring to go. And it's just funny how you go through that sort of roller coaster of like, fucking hell, like, oh my God, I'm going to be sick. Like, this is awful. This is a really bad situation I'm in. And then I went all the way up to, let's go. Like, I'm really like enthusiastic.
And being undefeated. So
yeah, and being undefeated. And it was a good experience. But just going back to my original point, watching it back, Sam, honestly, mate, I remember watching it the first time. I could not remember a fucking thing that happened. It was like it was as if I had been knocked out, but like I cannot really recall much of it in my head, and that just shows like how much of adrenaline must have been in my system, because I could not remember thinking actually that was a mistake or something like that. But it was a very interesting experience, and I think that will wrap up our conversation it's been a good one of sport. It has been a good one. Please leave a comment if you've ever been involved in sport, or your favourite sporting moment.
I just took the words out my mouth.
Oh yes, and please, if you're an absolute legend, you will leave a like, you will subscribe, and you obviously will comment. Shout out to anyone that does that. You're really helpful. Actually, when I think about it, I've been Jack.
And I'm still Sam. It just took that long to think about it, mate.
Yeah. Wow. Be lucky.
And I'll see you when you're older.